more like direct-to-consumer marketers, think about themselves as product and experience providers. That's one of the themes that we're going to be, I think, is going to be coursing through a lot of the stuff that we'll be talking about this morning, because I think one of the things that we're really seeing is a redefinition of what a media company is, what the relationship between media and consumer is. It's not just content as we've known it. It's going to be a different range of products and experiences, and they're all going to work together to build brands. But before we leave, I know a lot of you have a lot of different flights out this morning. So I wanted to remind you that we're going to be doing this. We do this twice a year. We regard our summits as a kind of ongoing conversation where we try to take up the topics that matter to you most, that help drive us forward in thinking about things like our theme this time, engagement. And I need your input. So I would love to hear from you about the things that you would like to hear for the next conference. I'll be coming back to a lot of you to ask you about what you want to see next time, the publishers you want to hear from. But I'm also always on the hunt, especially for this conference, with more case studies, more examples. And this is sort of what I was talking about the other day when I was grilling one of the panels about this idea of bringing more research and stats to what our argument is about why premium brands matter, why context matters, why engagement matters. And I would love to see more cases that illustrate that. I'd like to make that more of the content here. So if you have projects you're working with and you feel open enough to share some of the results from some of these cases, I'd love to find ways to put them on stage. I'd also like to remind everybody that we've been live streaming this. We're archiving this. The first day videos are already up on the agenda. In the next couple of days, you'll see the videos for the following days up. Just go back to the original Publisher Insider Summit agenda, and you'll find all those videos. Also, the deck that had that 28-page deck that had all of the summary of the survey that I did at the opening of the event, that will be posted shortly as well. And I'd also, of course, like to thank our sponsors. We really can't do this without our sponsors. And I know that I might get, it's tiresome, people have heard me say this again and again. One of the things that we really appreciate about the sponsors at our events is they kind of leave me alone. Unlike a lot of events, we don't do pay-to-play here. When the sponsors buy into being a part of a Media Post conference, they know that they are creating an environment where peers get to share ideas with peers, and they support our editorial independence. And so I really a good round of applause for our sponsors, because they know when they buy into this, they're buying into something different. So today we're going to start by talking about a range of alternative revenue streams. There are very few examples of, I know we're all, all publishers are sort of chasing live experiences now in events. There are very few examples where a trusted and familiar media brand has really blown up the event space the way that Complex Media has. They have, in just a few years, built their event into a 60,000-person con called appropriately Complex Con. And to talk to us about what they've learned about arranging an event like this, not only publicizing it, but monetizing it and bringing that many people together to take what was initially a content brand around a particular cultural niche and blow it up into to such proportions is Isis Claremont, who's the executive producer of Complex Con. She has been working on this for a number of years. She's going to talk to us about the way they work not only on the consumer side, but also with their marketer partners to create a really compelling business model and what she's learned about it. Please welcome Isis Claremont.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. We made it. It's the end. So we're here. So I'm very excited to be here with you guys, and I'm going to walk you through what our event is. So I met a lot of you guys over the weekend since, we've spent a lot of time together. So for those of you that do not know, I'm Isis Arias. I work at Complex Networks. I'm joining you from Brooklyn, New York, from any New Yorkers. There's a lot of New Yorkers in here. And I am the executive producer of our tentpole event, Complex Con, which is what I'll be talking to you about. So what is that? It was all a dream, right? A vision of the future of what our experiences could look like. And I'm going to start off by showing you what that visual mood board essentially was.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
Welcome. I guess you all know this little fella here. It's an old partnership. Mickey and I started out the first time many, many years ago. We've had a lot of our dreams come true. Now we want you to share with us our latest and greatest dream. We hope that it will be unlike anything else on this earth. A place of hopes and dreams, facts and fancy, all in one. Now, next year... This year, we want you to see and share with us the experience of building this dream into a reality.
As you enter this timeless land, one of these many worlds will open to you.
That's it, right here, and 10 months away.
So as you can see, we had some pretty wild ambitions, and we wanted to create this moment and this opportunity for us to engage with our audience in a different manner. But that covers a lot, right? There's just a ton of things in this video, and we wanted to know how large we could go. So some historical background. Our founder and chief visionary, Mark Ecko, had been very successful in starting a clothing brand, and then at some point started a print magazine called Complex. So for those of you that don't know our history, we had ended up taking that print mag and we started to pivot into digital video content, premiere videos and shows and new IP. And we had worked with Aaron Levant, who some of you have seen presentations from, and he had a streetwear-based trade show that was B2B called Agenda that was operated by Reed Pop. But we knew there was a new opportunity to engage with the audience, our audience, and we knew that there was a direct-to-consumer opportunity as well. But we wanted to be more than that. We didn't want to copycat an existing event. We didn't want to just fit ourselves into something that already existed. And we were trying to figure out what was going to be the best way. We didn't necessarily want to be a trade show. We weren't sure if we were going to be a festival. So what does that look like for us? But remember, we're a digital video. We're now moving into digital video. We are a digital media brand. So we've built this culture of becoming, the main go-to for youth and convergence culture. As you saw in that video, everyone comes to Complex first. But we're not an experiential company. And our CEO used to say, we don't do events, we're video first. So how does this play back into our content and our audience? What does that look like? So we have to redefine the con, because cons were popping, right? Like TwitchCon, VidCon, Comic-Con. We knew that cons existed, and we knew that there was something there, but it's different for us. And how do we stand apart? Because we'd been to some of those events, but that wasn't necessarily what we wanted to do. We wanted to become a launch pad for new, and we wanted to touch about innovations. We wanted to have a marketplace that was more than just transactional items, but was also new ideas, new talent, new entertainment. And we knew that retail, obviously, was key here, because we knew that our audience likes to buy things because we were often covering those things. We're on the pulse of what brands are popping and what things need to happen, or where they're shopping. So we knew that they were online at Supreme and at Kith, but we also knew that they were online at Grailed. So they're shopping digitally, they're shopping in real life. What does that look like from a retail perspective, and how do we create that platform that also speaks to this? And our content has to be first. We've got to do this from a space of how do our shows show up, how does our talent show up, and what does that look like to reimagine a live experience as it pertains to our content. And we are always supporting the new. We have to support our emerging. whether that's new music talent, new designers, new creators. We've always, again, we're focused on our youth culture, our convergence culture, so this is super important to us. And we want to make sure that that's a platform that we're covering. So we called it our Cultural Super Bowl. What does that mean? We knew that the World's Fair was a space that people could go to globally and check out new ideas and new things. And that's what we wanted to do for this audience. We wanted to do that for the youth. So we called it our Cultural Super Bowl. This is something new and crazy. We hadn't seen this done in the format that we wanted to do, and we really had to figure out what that meant. So we had to start to define what it is. You know, we're not exactly a conference. We are not a mall, but we do have a marketplace. We like TED, but we're not TED, and we want to be able to have conversations. And we love music, but we're not a music festival. So how does this all play together? That's the question that we're going to answer today. So we've got secret sauce. So I'm going to walk you guys through what this formula is. And again, a lot of you in this room probably will not be taking on something as huge and massive as this, but I'm going to break down how we've been able to put this together. So we've created a formula, and it's culture times curation plus community equals ComplexCon. So for whatever you're trying to do, make sure you understand what that formula looks like for you. And we've been talking a lot about culture this weekend. So culture technically is defined as the attitudes, attributes, and behaviors of a specific social group. And for us, we know what that means for our audience. We know that they are into hip hop and streetwear and style and sneakers. We know that they want to eat wildly crazy, cool things. And we know that they love music, they want to see performances, but they also want to be engaged with. They want to have meaningful conversations. So these are all the passion points that we know our audience exists, and how do we tap into those things in a really unique way. And we have to curate this, right? Because our editorial point of view is what stands out. Complex has a certain tone. We walk into a room and we look a certain way and we talk a certain way, and we know what our audience needs, and we have to do this right. So we can't just work with anybody. It does have to be the right partners, the right talent. So what do? We call in major global creatives. We called Takashi Murakami and Pharrell Williams, and we said, how can we help shape and mold what this could look like, what it could feel like, who's in that room? Because they're in that space, and they knew what looked good and how it was going to play. And our partners have to be right. Our brand partners, the activations, we're not just asking anyone to participate, but how you participate is key. Are you bringing something new? We're going to challenge how you show up. You can't just show up at some festival and bring that same activation to us. It's got to be new. It's got to be different. And then how do we work with talent beyond a transactional appearance? How do we take talent and give them the opportunity to come in a different format than just paying them to perform or to speak? What does that look like? And it's nothing without our audience. Community matters, right? Everyone's talking about communities. Our community is our audience, and we knew what this audience was like. We knew that Gen Z and millennials, they want experiences now, right? They're not buying things, but we knew that that was different for our audience. Our audience does like to buy things. Our audience feels like there's a social currency there, you know, there's a cachet. You are going to these events and these drops, and you're building this space. So we have to be where they are in order to promote this. We know that they're hanging out in downtown LA on Fairfax. We know that they're outside of opening ceremony in Soho. We know where they're at, and we know what their behaviors are. So we've got to be where they are at, and we have to promote not just out of home, but digitally. What does that look like to tap in? And we know that they were looking for an area to connect. They wanted to be in spaces to have a platform to really meet each other. They're sliding in each other's DMs to connect on site. So what are those opportunities that we're giving as a platform for this community to link? And then, like I said, the next, we have to identify who is coming up to continue to make this feel and look cool and new and different. So now we're bringing it to life. This whole point is our digital world into our real world. So we called it bringing the URL to IRL. And here's how we've done it. We want to make sure that there's collaboration and unique cultural moments, because that is what was going to make ComplexCon stand out outside of some of the other events. So we brought in spaces from whether it's merch, food, art, sports. We had PopSocket bring in Friends With You to create a huge playground that people could play on, and that was all ages friendly. Virgil Abloh and Murakami came together in an Off-White activation to do screen printing live on the floor. So that was a new, unique experience. We had a burger company come through and sell $5,000 grills because that is not something that you would ever see. And they did actually sell a couple of those, but it was sort of just the idea of something different and new and unique. And then we started our first sports collab with the franchise Chicago Cubs, which is a very new experience for us. And like I said, none of this matters without our content. So where does Complex play in these events? We bring our shows with us. We have our top-notch shows coming live on site at ComplexCon. So our best-in-class talent are there, and so we bring our sneaker shows, because obviously that's a big part of our ethos. So Sneaker Shopping, Full Size Run are there on the ground, shooting with talent and with a live audience. And then we bring Sean Evans of our Hot Ones show, because he is a master interviewer and makes celebrities cry while they eat hot wings, and why wouldn't you want to watch that in real life? So we're putting our content forefront in center. We want to pull that connectivity beyond that, because there's more that we could be doing. So we start a new platform. This becomes our TED. Complex Conversations was a way for us to have those meaningful conversations with our audience, and a way for us to talk about it in a different fashion. So whether it's a topic culturally, if it's the Sneaker of the Year panel, which always is a huge sellout, to social commentary, things about criminal justice, conversations that we wouldn't normally have. There's things that we're covering editorially. How do we take some of those topics and really start to deep dive for this audience? And then we've got to support our emerging talent. So we said brands, designers, creators. Here's a few. Chinatown Market has blown up. They've done huge collaborations now with Foot Locker and Converse and Urban Outfitters. They were with us from day one, and we've been really supportive of this brand, and we're very excited to see them continue to grow. But then there's others. There's others creatives that are doing this on their own, and we've been continuing to support them and help tell their story. So Joe Freshgoods is in Chicago and has a store called Fat Tiger Works, and he has been with us every year and has continued to grow, and now is doing collabs with Snapple. Luis de Guzman was working early on in his career at ComplexCon, and now he's got a whole booth where he's selling out of his merch, and he's doing a collaboration with Nickelodeon for SpongeBob with J Balvin. And Juwop met the person from Nike to give him his sneaker deal while he was at ComplexCon. So there's creatives that are in this space that are getting these introductions. They're utilizing this platform to continue to grow. So we take that a step further, and now we want to incubate. So we start a new program called Brands to Watch. This is now our opportunity to go beyond who's already doing the work and identify who's really the next. And so we just started this program, and we're editorially supporting these brands, but we're also giving them a platform to show up and learn how to create their own experiences. We did this with a few. Christopher Kites has really cool acrylic jewelry. Rello has a character that he's been building. He's also of a certain crew out of Chicago that's really bubbling up. So we're starting to put people on it from an incubator perspective. And then where does education play? We have a phrase in the office that our editor-in-chief likes to say, that if you're watching our content, you're either laughing, learning, or both. But education, when we talk about it, sort of sounds a little weird. We're like, oh, come to our event, we're gonna educate you. So how do we weave that in naturally? We put it on all of our stages, and we make sure that it ties back in. So we put Pusha T on a conference stage or on our conversation stage rather, to talk about the future of high schools with XQ. We ask our partners to participate. So they take our collaborative theme and they take education and they teach people how to customize their sneakers. And then they take that workshop and they move it into other retailers. So they also use that as a test platform for themselves. And then we work with other organizations that can bring things to the table that they're very well versed in. So community engagement with the Obama Foundation and leadership. And art. Art's super important to us. As you saw in that video, we are very much interested in how art plays a role here. So ComplexCon becomes this platform of discovery. While you're on the show floor, you want to check out all these different things, and you want more things to look at. So beyond just having the opportunity to shop, you're discovering new artists. You're discovering artists that exist that you didn't know. So from Hebrew Brantley and Heritage Auctions to new things, Takashi Murakami started a program called Sneakers for Breakfast, where he brought in young creatives to create different sneakers utilizing artwork. And that's Luis de Guzman's piece in the bottom as well. So we're really supporting and all of these emerging talents, but we also have the opportunity for you to purchase art. So not only are you discovering, but you're getting an opportunity now to purchase something that has appreciating value too. And we're teaching how that works. So like I said, we become a premier platform for innovation and discovery. Yes, it's an event. Yes, it's an experience. But we've created all of these touch points now throughout this massive festival that are very different than things that you've seen in any other event that you've been to. How many people went to ACL last night? Did any of you buy anything? How was that experience? Boring. I can't say that ComplexCon is boring at all, but I'll show you how we've been able to do it.
By my face. Am I too complex for ComplexCon?
So that is what I work on. One of our attendees said ComplexCon is like the internet, and I guess we won, because that's what we wanted to do, right? Bring our URL to IRL. So now that we've done it, we've proved the concept. Now you've got to get better, right? Because that's the goal. You've got to optimize. So I mentioned before that cons were popping. We had a lot of events that we knew we could look at, and now, 4 years later, there's even more. And we've seen everyone starting to utilize our model, whether it's creative collaborations or shopping experiences. And we've seen other publishers even that are starting to figure out, like, okay, how have they made this work? Let's try and do something different. So we've got to continue to keep it fresh. We've got to continue to stay on the pulse and optimize. So I'll talk about how we've worked with different partners to bring some of these things to life in some of the case studies. When brands want to show up at ComplexCon, you've obviously seen this video, and it looks sort of like wildly activations and all these different things to do. But again, we want that experience to be different. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different activations with our brand partners. So Otto. Otto obviously wants to sell cars at their festivals, and I saw Honda was a sponsor of ACL last night, and Hyundai does some festivals as well. So Cadillac came to us, and Cadillac has been working on sort of what does that brand look like as it pertains to youth. And so they wanted to do something that was authentic to us and that would integrate in without feeling different or outside. So of course we partner them with an artist, because we're like, well, we've got to have a moment here. So we bring in H4. They're these creative technologists out of Canada, and they're true artists. They're lovely people to work with. And they create this huge, massive, beautiful photo moment to create a platform for this vehicle. And they created in this photo booth that had LED floors and huge luminescent balls and neon flowers and wild stuff. And then we decide to kick it up a notch, and we work with Saints Jewelry to create a blinged out chain of the Cadillac logo, and we bring Nas in to present it to one lucky attendee. They had no idea that this was going to happen, but we created a huge moment that was only going to happen at ComplexCon. McDonald's, you may have noticed them in our video that I just showed, and they know what they're doing. McDonald's is in the cultural fabric. They kind of have a strong idea about how they should show up. And for the first time that they came, they did an adult playground, and it was awesome. We had 20-foot inflatable slides and go-karts and buttermilk chicken fingers and DJs, and it was awesome, but it was only for 500 people because of where we had placed it and how it needed to activate. And that was cool, but it felt a little exclusive in a space where we really wanted ComplexCon to feel inclusive and that people could do it. So they came back the following year and created a space where they had customization stations, and they had made these patches, and you could go in there and make jackets or t-shirts, and they had DJs, and they had celebrity appearances, and they really opened the space up so that everyone could participate, which was really important for us. And of course, they gave out free French fries, so they win. Adidas, as we grew, our lines got longer, right? And most folks know when you go to Disney, you go to Six Flags, there's lines, but you're going for an experience. And if you stand on line for a while and you don't actually get what you're going for, then it's not cool. And we also know that there is a reselling culture that happens in youth sneaker culture because it is sort of the nature of if you've got the first and you've got the drop that you sometimes are trying to resell that. So they wanted to challenge that and figure out how could we democratize the sneaker drops. And so they've created these, they worked with our team to integrate into our app an AR function and beacons that would ping at certain times. And so you'd use your phone to lock into a code, and that would unlock this ability to purchase this drop that was happening, and so you could get that sneaker and you could only buy one. So now everyone can get them. You don't have to stand in line for it. You just have to match your little code up to this thing. So how are we playing with innovation and tech to really create a better experience and to really challenge how, again, people are buying things? They were on the ground, but then they were buying it digitally. We've also done things like this when we've worked with Frenzy and Zen to take both an in real life shopping experience and also a digital shopping experience. So we've used geo-targeting and things like that on the floor. Now, we've done this in Long Beach for the past few years, and now we wanted to identify how we could move it. So we decided to pick Chicago. But when you move into a new city, now that you've grown, you come with new challenges. So we're in a new space. Now, once you move into a place, you're kind of used to how you operate. When we're at Long Beach Convention Center, we know how our campus works. We know where everything is. We moved into the Lakeside Center at McCormick Place, which is one of the largest convention centers in the nation. And that created sort of a different way of us having to think about what our event could look like and how it could feel, and then how we could get in all of these people. And then our labor was different, because in Chicago, there's labor unions. So we really had to think about that. That's an impact from a financial and a timing perspective with how we have to work with our vendors, because we didn't bring all of the same vendors, and we really did want to work local. And security, the safety of our attendees is key for us. We want to make sure that as everyone is having this experience, when you're moving around that many people, you have to be able to understand how the security works. So we really had to understand how to pivot and learn what was going to be best in this new space with this new audience. You're dealing with people from a different market, and ComplexCon was new. So a lot of people this was the first time they had ever attended. And we wanted to dig deeper into community. When we moved into Chicago, we knew that we wanted to do more with the event, and we had this feeling that we could be giving more as opposed to just going in and sort of having this moment and leaving again. We really wanted to dig in deep to that. So we started a new platform, and we've launched Complex Community, and we did a week's worth of programming. So this is a new opportunity for us to touch our audience in different ways beyond the show floor when we're in the market. And this is now something that we want to grow beyond ComplexCon and how we can work with philanthropic efforts and initiatives beyond this. So we did things like interview skills at the Covenant House. We did a soup kitchen takeover. We worked with talent and their organizations. So Vic Mensa has an org called Save Money, Save Lives. It's an event against gun violence. And so we partnered to support their event and bring our teams over. And then we did park beautification with PJ Tucker. So we're working with talent in different ways, like I mentioned. We're challenging people to come to the table. And now we're working with different organizations and touching teams in different ways. And we want to do more. We want to explore different things. Like I said, we are creating these platforms. We are a premier culture brand, and we want to figure out how to expand beyond what is this experience. So we want to create opportunities for people to meet. We want to be intentional about that. We want to figure out how we can play more with entertainment and TV and film, and is there an opportunity for new mediums, so screenings or podcasts? How do we explore what that looks like and you bring that to life? And I was talking to someone this weekend about what esports and gaming looks like, because like I said, we're on the pulse of what's happening. So how do we bring that to life on the floor? We know that there's Overwatch, and everyone is sponsoring a league right now. So if you're not paying attention to esports, it is something that you want to pay attention to. And then now that we've been able to move it from market to market, how do we move it beyond that? How do we go global? So I want to talk about some stats really quick. I know some of you guys are interested in the numbers. So Complex knows 18 to 24 male, right? That is, editorially, we know that we are killing it in the game as it pertains to our editorial audience, but ComplexCon expands that. So I'm saying 16 to 35 and even younger on the floor, but really that is key for us on the ground, and it's not just male, it's also female. We've got up to 50% of our attendees are coming are women, so female programming is very important to us, and that is something that we're trying to consistently make sure that we're weaving in and having an impact there. We've got 50 billion impressions to date because our audience likes to share. Our social numbers are crazy, and if you're online on Instagram throughout the weekend of November 2nd and 3rd, you'll see that. Like Steve mentioned earlier, about 60,000 attendees, and that's based off of our Long Beach show, which is a bigger campus. It's a little busy, just a teens. And about 20 million in average sales on the show floor. So a lot of the smaller brands that are participating are making a quarterly revenue on the ground at their marketplace, which is very exciting for us. These are our numbers on our community. Like I said, this was a new initiative for us. In a week, we did 12 events, and we had impact with over 1,000 community members. So when we're doing something, I don't know if we know how to do it small, but we want to make sure that when we're doing it authentically, and we have integrity in the space. And we're getting press coverage, so we're making the news. We're being covered by Chicago Tribune, LA Times, Billboard, WWD. We actually just won an Adweek award for our experiential as one of the top events, so we're pretty proud of it. K-Learnings. I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that we've learned over the time that we've been able to do this. So resourcing. I mentioned Aaron and his agenda show with ReedPop, and having partners that do operations and logistics is huge. Something like this takes a full team, and when I started at Complex, I was leading the team that did branded content production and experiential. We didn't yet have a full team that is focused on this, and we have a ComplexCon team now, but we work really closely with our partners at ReedPop to really bring this thing to life, and it takes a full team to put something like this together. You have to bring in people that know things that you don't. So, you know, yes, we are editorial, yes, we're a media company. Some of us in the building are really well-versed in experiential and how things need to come to life from a services perspective, but we really had to bring in the partners to help put that together. And then your timeline. You want to make sure that you're creating your milestones, because things like this do take time. And you know, when we did the first one, we were running with a few months, and now we've learned sort of like how to best optimize, but understanding how much runway you need to put something together is going to be super important for you. And set parameters. Like I said, we have cultural sort of boundaries with like how partners can show up and who gets to attend and participate, because we have to keep our curation intact. And so those guidelines are super important for us. And then at the end of the day, you've got to survey the teams, because data is super important. But you got to ask the hard questions. I ran through this whole thematic of like, what are the questions that we're asking? How did we get to this point? Is because we had to consistently ask ourselves, what is important? What is important to our audience? What is it that we want to put together, and how can we do that? Your audience comes first. You have to know who you're talking to, and then you've got to give them what they want. Like I said, we were able to weave in education, so you can totally pull in things that they don't know that they want, but you want to really understand what is it that you're offering as a service and an experience. Authenticity is key for us. We can't show up in a room without having integrity, so we are deep diving as a brand to make sure that the magic is in that curation. We have to be authentic. That's what's super important to us. And do something different. Try something new. If you're not doing any of these things, I'm sure that there's something that you could be doing to understand how experiential can help bring your brand to life, or how you can further service your audience. So I ask you guys a question. at the end of this, how can you be disruptive? What is it that you want to challenge? But create your vision, understand your formula, create your boundaries, and then push those boundaries. But you need to make magic at the end of the day. So really understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's not simple, guys. It's complex.
Thank you so much. We have time for questions?
Go.
Can you? Oh.
How big is your team that puts on the event?
It's a range. My immediate core team is 3 that is dedicated in our office. But like I said, we've got everyone in the office from every single team, our stakeholders, every single department touches it. So we work with a merch team, an editorial team, our sales team, our IT. There is a stakeholder from every department editorially. And then we have a team on the ReedPop side that handles the production and operations. We actually just did our org chart to really understand who's working on it, but our legal team, our finance team, everyone is sort of putting together this event. So it does become a village of sorts.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the revenue streams? I mean, you mentioned all the sales that are going on. Are you getting a rev share on the sales? And what are the main revenue streams that are coming?
So
into
for
this?
us, there's the opportunity to participate in the marketplace is floor space, but then we also have our sponsors. They come in, and there's a lot of the things that we're doing are tied to media. So a lot of our sponsors and partners are doing content campaigns with us as well. And then we have our gift shop and our own merch and things that we're creating.
How about the talent that's coming in on the cost side?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to be careful about in terms of your structure for this? And especially since you're bringing in a lot of talent, are you paying for that talent, or are you making deals with them that also involve their exposure in media?
So what's interesting is that, what we've learned is we're not the music festivals, and there's a lot of music festivals that will, especially from a performance perspective, the costs on talent can be pretty high. And because we're not necessarily just focused on music, we do have to do our deals in a sort of different way. And this isn't for everybody, but there is opportunities for talent to create an experience on the floor. There is an opportunity for them to sell merch. Sometimes it's tied to some editorial perspective if we're doing something with talent, and we are bringing talent from our shows as well. So we just launched a show called Get It Together with Aleli May, so she's obviously appearing on the ground to help promote that as well.
So part of the challenge here is that there's nothing that's all that standard. There's a lot of deal making, a lot of bespoke deals that have to go into this.
We're curating everything. There's not a single thing that could be pretty standard and just sort of like picked up. And we've got certain formats now that we've been able to do over a set of time, but I think that everything that we're doing is sort of like, how can we make this unique and different? Cool. This year we did Chicago in July, and in about a month I'll be in Long Beach. So if any of you guys want to check it out, let me know. We are working through what 20 is going to look like, because now that we've done it, we have a ton of learnings about what makes the most sense. And like I said, that milestone, right? Like we want to be able to get ahead of it. So we're planning 20 now and what that's going to look like. But we do definitely want to expand and figure out what that looks like. What has also been really interesting about ComplexCon is it's our tentpole. This is the largest event that we do with our name on it that we own. This has now created that conversation about how does Complex show up in different areas? How do we participate in different tentpoles? Does this move to other markets? How do we create an opportunity to have the brand show up in different facets? So it really is starting a much larger conversation about how experiential shows up for us throughout the year.
So tell us what it was like
Hang on.
to pivot your organization to do an event like this. Sorry. So what was it like when this idea first came up in the organization and to build this from an editorial operation without this kind of experiential thing? What did that process look like?
It was crazy. People didn't believe we were going to do it internally. I mean, getting the internal buy-in teams really understand, like, we're doing this and this is happening. And like I said, that partnership was really key because we have a team that understands how to operate in much larger spaces. We were doing, so as I said, I was on the brand partnerships team doing experiential with our brand partners. So we were doing events, whether it's white label or with partners, and we did tent poles. We had experiential experience, but we really needed a team that could come in and do this on a much larger scale. Editorially, people were like, but how? How does it work? I don't understand. Where do I play into this? But there's a ton of coverage that's happening. Not only are we doing a ton of content leading up to ComplexCon, but we're shooting everything on the floor. So all of the moments that are happening are also helping to drive our social. And we're also creating new opportunities of like coverage and, like I said, bringing the shows to life and sort of understanding how do we bring, what sort of new entertainment methods could we be considering. So it sort of becomes a thing that is symbiotic in a way.
Isis, that was fantastic.
Thank you.
You so much.
Appreciate it.
I just want to mention, we've had some of the best shoes on this stage this week that I've seen at our events. They're making my Allbirds feel really old. And I remember having a conversation with Rich Antonello, who is the head of Complex 12, 15 years ago, and him saying to me, sneaker culture, man. And me saying, what? That's a thing? We're going to round out by talking about product development, but we're going to start by hearing from BuzzFeed, which arguably several years ago really helped re-spark interest, I think, in affiliate marketing and the revenue stream by some of the innovations that they were putting into place about how to leverage and combine editorial in new creative ways around affiliate marketing. And in recent years, especially in the last year, they've really blown up this idea in really supercharging the ways in which they're working with major marketing companies and brands to create new brands, to create new products together, to create new kinds of partnerships. And Neela Ali, who's the VP of Strategic Partnerships for BuzzFeed, is going to talk about some of the partnerships that they've been doing now, one of their Tasty brand, their Foodie Tasty brand, the ways in which they're developing kitchenware with Walmart, but also in particular their shoppable recipes. This is really interesting, innovative stuff, and the ways in which they combine the affiliate marketing links that we've known and seen for years in really new editorial combinations and new ideas of how media companies partner with manufacturers when it comes to branding. So please welcome Neela Ali.
All right, hopefully everyone can hear me. That's a little bit of a hard act to follow and maybe not quite as exciting, but I'm here to talk about the recent launch of shoppable recipes with Tasty. And specifically what I'm going to touch on is how to deepen and scale an affiliate business. So affiliate is a bit of a nuanced space, as I'm sure a lot of you know. There's a lot of skepticism around whether or not it can become a meaningful business for content publishers and for advertisers. There's this historical kind of mindset that affiliate is really a channel that doesn't necessarily drive incrementality. It's more passive. It's something that they typically work with cashback and coupon sites on. But at BuzzFeed, affiliate is increasingly becoming a meaningful part of our business. In the past 3 years since 2016, we've seen a 10x growth in our affiliate business. What that means for us typically is some of the shopping content that you might see that are product roundups or product reviews, where we're featuring a product linking to a retailer, and when a consumer purchases, we earn a commission on that sale. Part of why we're seeing that success is what affiliate unveils for us is new data points around what our consumers are not only reading, but what retailers are actually clicking on and what they're purchasing. And we use that data to then drive our content strategy. And from that, we've essentially developed a content team who's focused on creating shopping content that continues to move sales for a lot of our partners. So this year we're really focused on what is Affiliate 2.0. Again, historically for us, it has been a lot of those shopping content roundups. So we took a look at our portfolio. So we have a huge portfolio of brands that focus on specific niche verticals. The biggest one being Tasty, which some people don't realize is actually a BuzzFeed brand. Goodful is our health and wellness brand. Bring Me is our travel brand. A lot of these verticals live on Facebook and are kind of Facebook-first properties that have now expanded to be O&O properties. So the one that we really thought was the big opportunity was Tasty. Many of you know it. It's kind of the top-down recipe videos that you see on Facebook. We currently have 2.1 billion monthly views across our Tasty platforms. 2 out of 3 of our Tasty users are actually making a Tasty recipe at home, and we're currently the #1 content publisher on Facebook. So we knew there was a big opportunity here to capitalize on what we own in the cooking space to drive affiliate and commerce for one of our big partners. So this is what kicked off the idea of shoppable recipes, which are now live. They launched back September 1st. It's been kind of in the market for about 2 months now. And we decided to do this in partnership with Walmart. So the question might be, why Walmart? As you may know, Walmart is one of the largest grocers in the United States. They currently have 3,100 nationwide stores that offer pickup. So that means you can actually order online, drive to a Walmart, and pick up your groceries curbside. And we also conducted a survey with our Tasty users and found that 54% of our users, when shopping in store, have a preference towards Walmart. And we already have an existing relationship with Walmart, so we have a huge line of Tasty licensed products that are currently sold at Walmart, specifically 125 cookware SKUs. We're also expanding that to do spice blends, cookbooks, cake decor kits, so there already is an existing footprint of Tasty products within Walmart stores. And then the question became, why shoppable recipes? Obviously, again, we do these kind of shopping posts that are us featuring a product, driving to a retailer where there's purchase. With Tasty, currently, there's kind of a limitation as to what we can drive. There was the obvious opportunity of maybe doing cooking roundups or kind of roundups of what are essentials to have in your kitchen and then drive to a grocer like Walmart to actually make those purchases. But we thought there was something kind of more natural where we could actually embed a commerce opportunity directly in the recipes. So we also wanted to ensure that kind of the instinct that we had was something that was truly there and something that there was an appetite for from our audience. And in the research that we conducted, we found that 70% of our users have actually made a Tasty recipe in the past year. So not only is our audience kind of passively using Tasty for entertainment, they're actually using it in an actionable way to make these recipes. We also found that 3 in 5 of our Tasty app users use the app at least once a week, which to us had a signal that maybe users are actually using the recipes to determine what to make or what ingredients to buy when they're grocery shopping for the week. And we also found that 83% of our users are using the app for cooking inspiration. And we found that their top motivators for using Tasty recipes is the easy to follow instructions and ease of making a recipe at home. So we wanted to figure out how can we make that experience even more seamless. So our partnership goals when we were kind of launching this Affiliate 2.0 was really to respond to audience signals, to partner with one of the largest grocers, and to understand our user behavior around grocery shopping and meal planning. And the important thing here was this is not kind of an easy integration to implement. What we needed to do essentially was figure out a way for us to scan a recipe page, identify what ingredients are on that page, map them to SKUs available at Walmart, and then you also have to take into account kind of the geo factors of every Walmart location across the nation will have different inventory availability. So there was a lot of components that went into figuring out how to actually make this magic happen. So our partnership roadmap, there is a lot of steps that went into actually making this happen. We probably kicked off this partnership. The conversations really started last year. It was kind of this vision that we had. We've been working with Walmart for a long time. We know we saw this as a big opportunity, but it really took multiple months for us to really identify how this was something that we could bring to market. So there was the initial kind of process of aligning our KPIs. Again, this is very different for both sides of our business. Walmart is not really a content player, and Tasty is not a direct-to-consumer retailer. So for us to partner together in a way that really kind of embeds both of our companies, we really had to align our KPIs. We also needed to do a data deep dive on both sides of our business to understand what the Tasty audience is doing when they're actually using the Tasty app to decide what to buy, and what Walmart grocery shoppers are needing in their grocery shopping process that Tasty can help make easier. So for Tasty, this is, again, we had to start thinking like a retailer. And what that means is we need to identify our target market. Obviously, as Tasty, we know who our audience is and what they typically come to Tasty for, and that's, again, to watch entertaining recipe making videos. But for us to kind of take a stance and say that you're coming to our app to actually grocery shop, that's a very different kind of vision for what we're offering our audience, and we have to identify what segment of the Tasty audience are we really targeting. We also wanted to develop customer personas, so we needed to identify who of the Tasty audience and who of the Walmart audience would actually be coming to us to grocery shop and meal plan using recipes. So for Walmart, their important target audience was the time-starved mom. So if we're kind of looking to that audience, it sounds kind of complicated to say this time-starved mom is realistically going to go to the Tasty app, find a recipe, essentially then add those recipes to her cart, then go to a Walmart to pick it up. There were so many kind of barriers to making this actually happen. So we had to make sure that we're keeping in mind who the target audience is and making an experience on our site that is truly frictionless and can drive the consumer to easily make a purchase. As I said, that frictionless experience is important for both sides. And again, it's important to define your value proposition. Again, for us, this seems innovative, it's cool, we're doing something that's kind of PR worthy, but is it actually of value to the audience, and what is that value proposition? I think that's something that commonly retailers think about when they're developing their brand and identifying what assortment they want to offer their audiences. But media companies don't typically think that way. It's more about viewability, it's about creating content that builds your audience. We're actually not only asking our audience to read tasty recipes, we're asking them to take an action and essentially trust that we're creating an experience for them that is going to be frictionless and make grocery shopping easier for them. And then again, we have to essentially rethink how we're marketing Tasty. People don't think of Tasty as a place where you can shop for your recipes. So there's essentially a brand awareness play that we now have to develop to educate our audience about this new experience and to actually get them into the app, shopping groceries, and looking at recipes in this way. So in order to make this happen, as I said, there's multiple players involved. We partnered with a company called Northfork. They're based in Sweden, and they're one of the biggest, they're essentially the connective tissue between BuzzFeed and Walmart that enables what I was talking about earlier of looking at a recipe, identifying the ingredients on the page, and mapping it to SKUs available at Walmart, and being able to do that essentially with geo-targeting capabilities. So you can actually see this experience live in the app today. Kind of what the experience looks like for the consumer is if you're on Facebook, you're seeing a tasty recipe. What we're doing is we have a call to action that drives into the app in order to shop the recipe. Once you're in the recipe, you essentially put in your zip code is how we're identifying where the user is, or we can, if you enable your location services, that's another way we can find the Walmart closest to you. You essentially add a tasty recipe into your grocery bag. Once you're there, we have the ability for you to swap certain ingredients. So if we're surfacing eggs and you actually want organic eggs, you can do that directly through the app. We also found that oftentimes a lot of our consumers already have a lot of pantry items, so it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to constantly kind of push olive oil or salt or pepper. So we actually have a separate section within the app where you can add a pantry item so it's not automatically added. And we can also do things like increase or decrease the serving size. When we first launched the partnership, kind of the phase one was also providing nutritional information because we wanted to, again, provide as much value as we could directly within the app. Once you've kind of built your grocery bag within the Tasty cart, it then drives you directly into a pre-populated Walmart bag, and that's where you can seamlessly check out and then pick up your groceries in store. And for the Walmart locations where delivery is available, there's also the option for delivery. So the exciting thing about this is obviously this partnership kind of is a child of data. We saw the signals both from a qualitative and quantitative standpoint, and we decided that this was a big opportunity we wanted to pursue. But now that we have this integration live, we're starting to access even a new layer of data that can actually help us grow the Tasty brand beyond the shoppable recipes integration. So we now are able to identify certain behaviors within the app that are giving us new signals as to how our audience is interacting with Tasty. A really interesting finding for us is when we were first working with Walmart, they were very adamant that the big grocery shopping day for their consumers is Friday. Kind of the mentality there is that people, after a long week of work, go to the grocery store, buy their groceries for the week, and they're kind of making meals at home over the weekend. The Tasty audience strongly believe that most millennials are buying their groceries on Sunday, which as a New Yorker, that is incredibly true. I don't know if it is in other markets. And the funny thing is we're finding that on Sundays, we sometimes see like a 2x spike in grocery sales, so very much we're seeing that behavior happen with our audience. What's interesting for us to watch is as more and more Walmart consumers start downloading the app, whether those shopping behaviors will start to shift. And as part of this partnership, we're marketing the app both through our own channels and through the Walmart channel, so we do foresee kind of the demographics of the Tasty audience shifting over time. We also think there's a huge opportunity here for CPG partners. We're now, again, seeing Tasty audiences interact with our recipes on a whole new level. This is a big opportunity if we're starting to see that chicken sales are kind of the big SKU or the main SKU that we're driving through the app. Is there an opportunity for us to partner with Purdue or Tyson in a really big and interesting way? We also are, again, starting to get signals around not only what our audience is looking at from an entertainment standpoint, but actually from a utility standpoint, which allows us to develop new content strategies. Something interesting that we've recently learned is things like those massive cookie recipes that you see sometimes through Tasty videos. They get a ton of engagement, but we're not seeing anyone actually take action to purchase those products. So we're starting to see that there's kind of a difference between entertainment and utility and what causes our audience to take action. And lastly, we do see a big opportunity to further enhance this experience through merchandising and personalization. So currently, if you enter the Tasty app, there's no sense of us kind of changing what products we're surfacing based on what recipes you're purchasing. But we do see a future where there's a much more personalized experience within the app, and for us to even kind of go down the path of doing things like weekly meal planning or surfacing recipes based on your dietary preferences. It's kind of the sky's the limit, but we really want to be thoughtful about when we're building something, it being based on data and signals and where we see the big opportunity for our audience. So lastly, to give you some numbers, like I said, this has now been live for almost 2 months at this point. We're seeing a 24% click-through rate from the Tasty app to Walmart grocery. The numbers have been pretty astounding for even our teams. Kind of to the question earlier of how do you get internal teams to support a project that feels very different than kind of what the core function of a media company might be. There was a little bit of skepticism that people would actually use the Tasty app in this way. But like I said, 24% of our audience is actually clicking through from the shopping cart to Walmart. Once they get to Walmart, we're seeing an 11% conversion rate. For those of you who know retail, that number is extremely high, which is, again, I think what we've been able to do and what we've cracked is we're driving someone with really high intent from our ecosystem into the into the Walmart grocery cart. We're also seeing that our audience is buying 2.2 recipes on average, which we find to be really interesting and a signal that our audience is kind of using this new feature to meal plan for the week. And we're also already seeing a 35% re-engagement rate. So that means someone who used this feature the first time is actually coming back to use it again. Again, that number may shift over time, especially as the feature is live in the app, but it's really exciting to see that our audience is clearly having a positive experience and coming back to do it again. So, thank you.
Neela, that was great. I want to bring the panel on product development up to join Neela, but as they do, let me ask Tim and the panel to come up. But does anybody have any questions right away for Neela? Yeah.
Hey, what did Walmart do to promote this partnership on their own channels, or how did you go about navigating that promotion within such a big, beefy company?
Yeah, so currently we actually have a curbside mailer that's going to be put into all grocery bags in October and in November. Kind of all, like, it was an idea that Walmart came to us about. They see this as a big opportunity for them, again, to play in the content space in a big way and for it to be a new kind of value add for their audience. So they've been marketing it aggressively through their own channels, through their on-site channels, through their social channels, and again, we're even kind of getting promotion through their physical stores. It sounds like it might be a hard conversation to have, but it actually hasn't been. They really see this as a partnership that they're working with us in lockstep. So it's been I think we wouldn't really go into the partnership without knowing that we'd have that sort of support from the Walmart side as well.
I have a question about ensuring that you are satisfying user need as opposed to revenue need. The temptation here, as it is with all affiliate marketing, but especially here, is you could optimize your content to promote essentially on conversion as opposed to user need. So what sort of internal safeguards are you putting in place or internal metrics to ensure that this isn't being driven simply by content isn't being prioritized simply by its ability to sell goods?
So I think the interesting thing about affiliate is it's a kind of self-policing model. I would say conversion and serving the needs of the consumer are one and the same. If we're pushing something that isn't natural to the audience or that isn't servicing the audience, they're not going to buy anything or convert, and that'll be the death of the partnership. So what we're building has to serve the consumer need. As a media company, it's relatively easy, quote unquote, to get traffic to content or to get essentially impressions or views, but it's much more challenging to get someone to actually take action and convert. So if we're not building the right experience, that conversion won't exist. So we're essentially kind of forced to build something that actually services the audience. And again, how we ensure that we're doing that is by listening to audience signals and just looking at the data. So ultimately, yes, conversion is the driver of our strategy because that's how we can make this a sustainable business. But conversion ultimately means that the audience is liking what we're building, and we need to lean into what the audience wants.
Neela, thank you very much. This was great. And stay there. Tim and panel, come on up. We're going to round out today by talking about this issue of product development. A lot of these issues have been foreshadowed by both Isis and Neela, this idea of publishers now thinking of themselves not only as retailers but as merchandisers, thinking of themselves as developing product, not just content. I've found it fascinating that Complex started their sizzle reel started with Walt Disney, who arguably was the person who understood better than anybody else the ways in which content is simply part of a much larger experiential mix, and he did it decades before we're now starting to see it course through the rest of media. To take the lead on this panel about product development, we have returning champion here at the Publishing Summit, Tim Taliaferro, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Texas Monthly. You're based here, right? Right. And arguably, Chief Innovation Officer, you really are doing what we're talking about here. You're overseeing all of those other ancillary and non-content pieces in terms of events and other types of products. So please welcome Tim and our final panel on product development.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, I hope you're enjoying your time in Austin. Are you? Yeah. Have you been just drinking in the whole city and drinking? Okay, good. Yes, barbecue, tacos. If you've had those things, you're doing it right. Thank you, everyone. We've got some people here who are going to give you some other really interesting perspectives, and I'm excited to hear from them. Neela, wow, that was amazing. What do I start? I was going to start with you, but now that you just sort of blew through that, I'm actually going to go ahead. And I think one of the interesting things here that's come up as I've been listening is how media entities, how these publishers are evolving to get into this business and finding where the right spot for them is. And so, Leora, I actually wanted to start with you, if you don't mind, because Trusted Media Brands, as we were talking, went through this interesting evolution that started with what you said was a strength in direct marketing, and then it got into books, and then it got into other things. Can you tell us that evolution and how that happened?
Sure. Trusted Media Brands, if you don't know, is Reader's Digest, which probably a lot of people know, but also Taste of Home, Family Handyman, and a whole bunch of others. Those are the three core. It is people who love to do. I think there's been a focus here a lot on millennials and Gen Z, and I have to say we probably have a bigger focus on boomers and Gen X. So a little bit different. I think we're going younger. We definitely are. But it is a different audience, and they have different needs. So I think the company has done a great job maintaining their magazine profile. We have only shrunk single digits, while other companies have shrunk double digits in the last year. So really holding on to our base because we have great content. And I think something that's kind of resonated throughout the entire conference is the need for authority and authenticity. Without that, you're done. So we've been able to maintain that through books, and really that's a big business for us as well, and consistently is. So my job is really to take that audience and super deliver them. And as we were talking earlier, like that's 10 to 20% of your audience are just the most loyal customers and just want more and more from your brand. So my job is really to monetize that audience, and doing that by giving them what they want, whether that's more content, more skills, because our audience are doers with online learning, a more premium experience where they can interact with the brand and get access to kind of a super package of benefits, what we call bundling and unbundling of assets, or things to do better with our cooking brand. How can we're developing cookware so they can really manage the products, manage the recipes, and build make the products that they love so much in those recipes. So that's kind of what I go through.
That's great. And I should say I'm a big family handyman, aspiring family handyman. I'm not quite there, but maybe DIYU is for me. Elise, can you tell us about the Sabre Cookware program that you guys are working on and the idea of super royalties, which really caught my ear when we were talking about that?
Right. Yeah, so, a big part of what I'm doing at Bonnier Corp is managing our outbound trademark licensing. And, obviously Tasty's gotten into this very successfully recently. And it's, where your trademark has a lot of elasticity beyond your own audience. And you could take your brand, put it onto product, have your licensee go out and sell product. Great if you're in Walmart, because it's a great engine, for reaching consumers. But wherever your products find the market, and then coming back at it from an affiliate perspective, so where you can be gaining that affiliate lead gen revenue on top of the royalty revenue that you're going to get paid from your manufacturer. So it's kind of like bringing the affiliate and the licensing thing together. So that's something we're going to be focused on at Bonnier Corp next year. We're going to be launching Savour cookware.
Sorry, my bad.
It's okay. Savour, however you want to call it. But
forgive me for being pedestrian.
As they say at the office, it rhymes with cat fur.
That helps, actually. That helps a lot.
There's a video somewhere one of the old editors did online that he's trying
Savour,
to explain how to pronounce Savour, and that's the joke. So it's very interesting. And I think the big thing for talking about DTC, it really is about this conversation with consumers and leveraging a brand. When you have a great media brand that connects with your audience, you should be able to take that brand and leverage it beyond your audience through some of these other partnerships. Way more people bought Better Homes and Gardens products at Walmart than read or subscribed to the Better Homes and Gardens magazine. Even here at Bonnier, I joined just about a year ago, and we have a direct-to-retail partnership with Sears, and Sears is in a terrible state, and they declared bankruptcy also just about a year ago. And but the good news is that they were able to take the Outdoor Life brand and use it as a centerpiece of their private label operations. So we're going to be doing a lot of different things with Outdoor Life next year too.
Very cool, very exciting. Dominic, one thing I wanted to ask you about was when you have these competing prerogatives, right? What you got to do with your newsroom, how you're monetizing people. Where does an affiliate play rank in that in your organization versus other priorities?
And I think you actually introed it well, because for us, when I came on board Inquisitor, it wasn't in the most positive place in terms of revenue structure. And I'm not a hard man, but the first week when I had to restructure and let people go and come on, it was a tough moment. So for the past year and a half, the goal was get that structure down to allow us to do everything else. So we hit records in terms of revenue, in terms of growth, in terms of each channel. We've gotten really good at how do I get eyeballs on that site. Now, especially when I watch today, Isis and Neela, I'm glad to see the percentage of people looking at their phones is greatly reduced, and they really got everyone. And I think that's the next evolution. So what we're doing is we're looking at our data, seeing where can I do the affiliate without losing the authenticity that got our audience back. We have a data analytics firm we use in Long Island where I'm based, and we've been analyzing just for the simple affiliate, if it's a noun versus an adjective and what introduction on that simple link keeps it naturally within. So I told the writers, we're not telling you we're putting links. I don't want you to have that influence on your writing. We need your authenticity. But we'll put the links in and see where that effect has occurred, because it was so hard to get us where we are with authenticity after a year and a half. Now we're there. Okay. Now what do we do to not lose it, to also be able to do what Isis and Neela are doing amazingly well,
Okay, so walk me through that real quick, because you said you don't need to worry about putting in links, we'll put it in. What does that actually mean?
Functionally,
yeah.
We've been analyzing. The problem is when the writer is involved, I feel immediately authenticity drops. We'd like you to do X, Y, and Z with this and that product. Oh my goodness, my job's on the line. This is the best product forever. So we're trying to remove that from the equation. Your job is to be an authentic writer, to follow journalism as much as can be done with what we're doing. Now, at times, like we found certain stories have done exceptionally well, and we need to keep it further. So we're studying the data to say, what was it? So, for example, we found stories where you have a celebrity or notoriety commenting on something. Of course, blew it out of the ballpark and kept the original story. So we've not only analyzed the data in terms of placement of the link, we found certain paragraphs, the nature of the link, so it can't be a hard sell, it had to be a very soft sell. In addition, what I would do is I would survey the copy editors. How authentic was this story? Rate it from 1 to 10. And if it was further on, we'd analyze and cross-compare, we found higher success. So it had to have that high authority in terms of authenticity, as well as a link within it that was just natural, like Cindy Crawford likes to use bacon soap. That was the worst improvisation I've done all day. There's no bacon soap to be used, and I've never used such a thing. But if you can do it within that story, and it is a legitimate story, although the legitimacy of that, again, I question, but it does seem to have the best translation to a sale.
I was going to say, so
Please.
for us, it's actually a very different strategy in that we very explicitly are adding affiliate links, and we actually have a team of writers who are creating shopping content. As I was saying earlier, for us, it is a very self-policing kind of strategy to implement, because if our editors are linking to products that they don't truly stand by, that don't actually have really strong reviews, and if we're driving to Amazon on a product page that has 3 stars, no one's going to win in that scenario, and the audience can very quickly see that that was a bad recommendation. So we almost embrace the fact that we are driving people to buy products, and again, we're using the data as to what they bought to create that content strategy. I think it's very different depending on what the nature of your business is. I think especially as news organizations are trying to do affiliate more and more, you have to approach it differently. But we've essentially said, this is our shopping content. We are very intentionally driving to product and very thoughtfully selecting which products we're driving to, and making that explicit to the reader. So we have like a very strong call to action with a link to the product, with the price, and even sometimes like offer alternative options for that product. And we've seen a lot of success for that, but I know that's not necessarily something every company can embrace right now.
Well, let's talk about data. Oh, sorry. Go
I was
ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I think it is important to put on a merchant mentality so that you actually are in sync with what's going on from a merchandising calendar, which isn't generally that different from what's going on with an editorial calendar. They naturally do kind of sync up. You know, you're selling roasters at the same time you're writing recipes about turkeys. So there is a natural alignment between content and merchandising. I do think from an affiliate perspective, you do have to have a little bit more of that merchant mentality. You know,
This is deer stands instead of,
yeah,
this is
that's
hunting
right.
knives instead of deer
Right, this
stands
is like,
example, right?
Should your writer be writing articles about deer stands or hunting knives? And from a turn perspective, you sell a lot more hunting knives in the marketplace. I mean, you'd be surprised how big the hunting knife market is versus the deer stand market. And you know, the editorial guy might love this new deer stand, and he's all getting a new deer stand this year, and he wants to cover deer stands because, yeah, they're really important for that core hunter. But, you know, I'd rather have him write 10 articles about knives.
How do you guys manage this flow of information? Because data obviously is very much a theme here, and you know, you want to have both the merchandiser's sensibility about these things, but the data has to make it to the editorial teams as well, right? How do you manage that flow, and what works and what doesn't?
So I actually have a merchandiser on my team whose core function is essentially analyzing the data. And her background, she worked at Saks Fifth Avenue. Prior to this, I myself actually used to work at Ann Taylor as a merchandiser. So I think my whole team kind of comes from an e-commerce background. The editorial team actually has a function within their own team where they, on a weekly basis, are analyzing the content, seeing which content frames did the best, which products sold, which retailers are doing well. So they're constantly kind of educating themselves around where the opportunity is and what's resonating with their audience. And then my team, more so from the business side, is really keeping a constant pulse on the content and relaying any big opportunities that might be missed by the editorial team. What gets tricky is, again, certain posts might have a lot of scale in terms of traffic, so they could look like they're outperforming other posts in terms of sales, but there's oftentimes some posts that are a little bit more niche and maybe hit a smaller audience, but the conversion is really high. So it's important to identify what KPIs you really want to go after, and based on that, develop your strategy.
So in your case, conversion is a KPI. How do you guys treat that? Or do you give editorial people
Well, like I was
directives
saying,
like
it's
that.
an evolution for us. We're moving towards that. Where the data comes for us is purely we're taking the writer's anecdotal observations and testing them. Because for us, the KPI is the eyeballs. We need to make sure that people are reading that story and how far it's going. So very often, weekly staff meetings we'll have with 40 writers. What have you noticed? And I will literally document and kind of weed out the fringe stuff, and we will get the data team to take that anecdotal evidence and test it and see if it was just in their head or not.
For us, it's an evolution too. Our current editors manage the same process, the affiliate link. So it has been an education process because they aren't merchants, right? But they are interested in the content. It's a new franchise for them. They like writing it. And they love seeing the conversion. They love seeing that they're making money. So they're so used to chasing visits and page views that chasing dollars is actually super exciting to them. So we've gotten a lot of excitement about it. It's more that ongoing education and probably evolving to an organization that has dedicated merchant writers because you really have to understand what is resonating with the audience. So we do look at that data. What we're getting the biggest percentage affiliate rate on, right? So we're also trying to push that stuff if it works, right? It still has to be authentic. We're not going to push something just because, everybody knows, I think, here that mattresses get the highest payout rate. But if it doesn't make sense in the story, then it doesn't make sense in the content or that for that audience, we can't do it. So it's really that combination of knowledge.
How do you handle a situation where, let's say you've got a content writer and they, they're interested in product X, and then you've got people who are doing more of the shopping stuff, and they hate that thing, or vice versa? How do you manage if, someone on the editorial side really doesn't like a product, but on the shopping side, it's a good affiliate opportunity? How does that get decided?
We try to keep it as open as possible. There's lifestyle writers who aren't necessarily shopping writers who will occasionally write a shopping post because it's a product that they're really enthusiastic about. I think the reality is not every single person in this room likes the same product. Like different people like different things. People have different affinities towards certain retailers. So we don't try to be too prescriptive about what people can and can't write. Ultimately, kind of our biggest guardrail is if the product has bad user reviews, we're not going to write about it. So even if an editor is like super enthusiastic about a product, if we're driving to a landing page or an experience that's going to be a bad user experience, that's where our editorial team will just say no. But as long as it's a product that makes sense for a certain market, there's kind of no restrictions about what we can and can't write. Where it becomes important is is the scale there? You don't want to write about a product that's only relevant to such a small audience where it's not necessarily going to move the needle, not even just in terms of affiliate data or affiliate KPIs, but just traffic. So it's just making sure that you're going after the opportunities that make sense for the overall business.
Sorry, go ahead, Dominic. Were you going to say something?
No, I 100% what she said. I think that we change the business with authenticity. So the second something knocks it out, I don't care if there's a revenue opportunity. I'm going to lose the authenticity. I'm losing something much greater at that point.
So the value of the authenticity is better than every...
To me, by far.
Yeah.
To me, by far.
So one way that I think people learn is by making mistakes. Can you guys share with us a mistake that was illuminating or that lodged deeply and helped refine your strategies, product development strategies?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like to say it happened before I started, but we were approached by a licensor that was like, we think coffee is going to be great. Everybody drinks coffee. Coffee's going to be great for your audience. We'll do everything.
Coffee's going to be big. Okay.
Coffee's going to be big. It's big. It's going to be branded. It's going to be great for your audience. We're going to market to your internal audience. We're going to get a huge external audience interested in this. We did our own research. Our research said that our audience was not that interested. And that's the beauty of affiliate. We could look at affiliate and see what people were buying. So they wanted to sell ground coffee. We saw that our audience actually buy K-Cups. So we went for it anyway because there was really very low lift for us. So we were like, let's try it out. We hadn't done licensing in a while. It was before we started our cookware brand. And we jumped in, and there was very little interest, as we had expected. And we sent out emails, we pitched our own audience. I mean, and then it became a point where the cost of sending out an email to our audience was actually taking away from revenue from other products. So it just didn't make sense. So we had to kind of stop it in its tracks. But it just didn't work. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust your data and sell what your audience wants.
Yeah, I think that, that's a key thing I see too, is oftentimes licensing deals are conflated as lead gen deals. And someone comes to you with this great idea. When I was at Meredith, someone came to us marketing credit cards, and we're going to do branded credit cards, and we're going to have this great family circle credit card with all these tools in the back that helped you manage your household budget and your groceries and everything that she would want as the chief household officer. But at the end of the day, it was, what they really wanted was for me to go out and sell their credit cards with my name on it, and if I sold one, I'd get a fee. And then you really have to bring in that acquisition cost and understand that, just because you're a media company, going out and acquiring customers for this specific product, I mean, it may be within the audience you have, but people who want enough of that particular product, you probably have to do lead gen and acquisition beyond your organic audience. And the cost of that, compared with what your potential royalty revenue could be, often you'll be on the wrong side of that equation.
I've been on online, my answer is more in general with online publishing. I've been doing it since 1994. And I just spoke at a college students recently, and I said, I embrace the fact that I've had so many failures since 1994. And that in and of itself is the lesson. Product-wise, I've been involved with 2 travel books, a record label. Someone approached me about a pasta sauce where I had to embrace my Italian authenticity. Oh, and there's about 24 others. And very often with the staff now, the lesson that came out of it, I will say very honestly, tell me where I've screwed up, or if there's a meeting with the staff and I kind of see that moment of pause, I'll say afterwards, I really want you to tell me where I'm wrong, I expect to be. And it's expressing to them, I can still be a leader and embrace that possible failure. And I will say to the team, you know what, I've reevaluated the whole process. You guys have told me where it's wrong, and I see it. And I'm okay with that. So I think especially in this industry, right now we're all about brand. And X number of years ago we were about playing the game of ARB and that was the big thing. And then before that was this, and before that, and every time there's that moment, oh my God, it's podcast, oh my God, do you have a blog? Have you heard a blog yet? And you can do it. And I feel as if we don't know it. We're fooling ourselves if we think we know everything in this. And I approach every meeting and go, I know nothing. I know nothing. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Dominic, I mean, kudos to you. You're an enlightened leader, and that's to your credit.
I'm an insecure leader who accepts that
insecurity. Okay, all right, either way. But let's talk about that then just from a product development strategy. I mean, top down versus bottom up. How do you guys within your organizations invite staff members to say, we really should be doing a shoppable, tasty recipe app?
So the fun secret is we actually tried to do this shoppable recipe integration 2 years ago when I first started. And in that scenario, it was much more top down, where the idea came from the business team. We'd been chatting with Walmart. We thought there was this obvious integration within the Tasty app that we could essentially just have widgets in the app that drove to products that were contextually relevant to the recipe that would drive sales. And it bombed. Like literally no one clicked on it. No one bought anything. It did not do well. Because again, like from a user utility standpoint, it added no value to the experience. So the second time around, the product team actually reapproached me and was like, remember that thing we tried to do 2 years ago? We think we can do it again, but this is how we'd approach it. And we want to be more involved in the process. So this time around, I would actually say the product team kind of entirely led the project. I very much essentially made the relationship with Walmart and figured out the economics and kind of policed the teams to make sure that from like a business standpoint, things were moving in the right direction. And now it's been a wild success. So I think my biggest learning from there is like business people should not be product people. And I think I've been involved in that process now. And very much like I am kind of the ultimate decision maker because it's like my partnership that I'm leading. But at the end of the day, I defer to them on all the big decisions and the process and the roadmap. And it's just, I've been able to see the wild difference in what the execution looks like and how it has now become a success.
How about you guys? How do you approach this? Where did DIYU come from?
that came from the editors. So we did the same thing. We had a brainstorm with our editorial team and like, what are the assets that this brand has and how could we pack, and things, things that I'd never even heard of, like SketchUp files and much more complicated things for building. And we actually took all those ideas and we threw it into a conjoint study. So that actually made it really fair and everybody wanted to see the results and where did we see internally, and we used an internal as well as an external audience to see what are the assets that people were interested in. And it was really interesting because we market DIYU to our internal audience pretty accessibly. So that wasn't that interesting to them. They knew it, but the external audience thought it was incredible. Our internal audience loves our books. If you're able to put a book into a package, they'll buy it. So we kind of conflated all that together and built a package and this kind of premium product around DIYU and our other assets to sell at a premium subscription, and that's how we came up with it. But it did come from all the ideas of the editorial
And that's
team.
Insider.
That's
the premium
Insider,
product.
yeah.
Okay. Elise, how about you?
Yeah, well, I think when you have a strong creative leader who's really trying to think, future forward about what's going on in media and all these emerging platforms, and it does feel like they pop up all the time. Now it's podcasts, now it's this. But, at one of our brands, Popular Science, we have a really strong creative leader there. He's done a great job on the brand across the board in both our print and digital products. And he's really been the driving force behind our very successful podcast, The Weirdest Thing I Learned This Week. And it's highly entertaining if you haven't heard it. I think it does stand out in the podcast space. And we've just entered into a co-production agreement with ITV to turn it into an unscripted broadcast product. So that will be a non-advertising revenue product for the company. So we'll work to diversify revenue. It will work to create a new franchise for us in The Weirdest Thing. So from a trademark perspective, we're all over The Weirdest Thing. The podcast opens up every, hey weirdos, and let's get some other weirdos to subscribe. And if you know any weirdos, have them subscribe. And there's probably a few weirdos right here, so you should all get on there and take a listen. So it's just a different way to think about partnering, with this thing that they've created. And now my team's been able to take it out onto the street and say, how do we get this? We've sold out 3 live events in Manhattan in a small venue on the Lower East Side. So now how do we take that up and kind of in scale? And I think yesterday the woman from Condé Nast made a good point. Start small. Really it was just like, the editorial kids threw it together. They found the bar on the Lower East Side. They said, we're going to do a live show. They brought their equipment in, and they did a live show, and it didn't take a whole lot of, selling.
Those young editorial kids.
They're just get it going, man.
Okay, let me ask you about something a little bit off to the side here. So we're in the age of the influencer still. Is there an influencer strategy that you guys use as it relates to affiliate, as it relates to some of the more direct-to-consumer plays that you have, or not? Does that damage the authenticity? Does it help? What do you guys think?
We have a creators program at BuzzFeed, and it's somewhere that the business is taking a big bet. So far, for our affiliate business, we very much have kind of stuck to our editorial team. And where I'd say we're differentiated from our competitors is we don't speak to our audience from a place of authority. It's more so we're like your trusted friend who's done the work of surfacing the best products. So we're almost like the anti-influencer, I would say. We rely really heavily on user reviews. Again, we kind of like try to validate our editorial claims with things outside of just saying like, we're BuzzFeed and this is the thing you have to buy. It's really worked for us, but I think that also is because BuzzFeed's a brand that was born out of being kind of like mass and viral and engaging versus kind of building this like
approachable,
exactly. So for us, I would say influencer marketing gets it is a very different approach. I actually think micro-influencers are more relevant for kind of what our business looks like, but so far we haven't done much to tap them into our business.
Well, I ran a somewhat large-scale influencer program for Walmart in my former role. I don't know if you've seen any of the BHG Live Better content. You've probably seen some of it. And, it was interesting because, as you know, Meredith has a long-term direct-to-retail partnership also with Walmart. I ran that for 10 years. Part of that is we were obligated to run media to support it. When I first started in the role, nothing existed at Meredith except print, so all the support was in print. After 10 years of evolution of media, it was everything, including social and influencer programs. And we put together a network of, at first, 30 women who were in the homemaking, blogger, DIY kind of space. They were great magnifiers of the product, created great content with it. After a while, we dramatically reduced the number of influencers from 30 to 10, took the 10 that had the highest quality content production, had the best reach, some combination thereof, and then we put more paid behind their content to kind of push it farther. And so instead of allocating money for 20 other smaller influencers, we just reallocated that money to magnify the message of the 10, and it was a great part of the program.
Influencer?
That's my first reaction. Usually when I hear things that I don't like, I try to understand it at least and say, what am I missing here? And I, as a Catholic, almost like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Many years ago, someone brought up influencers, and I kind of priced it all out. How much did this influencer cost? How much, etc. And I found a variant of your strategy was more the reality. I might have possibly created an influencer, hiring a model, might have possibly created an audience. And the net cost to create that reality was so much less than finding an influencer. And we're talking within a really tight time span. My influencer was invited to Disney Cruises events, and I was like, this is out of control. This is not like reality going on at this moment. But it did show me that there's a pragmatic point of view one can take in that, do you need the influencer, or did you need that message to get across in a very controlled manner? And I think you spoke perfectly to it. Then maybe the influencer created the content for cheaper. Then one's organization can do the sales. Operationally, I realized after that lesson, no, you could just do it yourself and just have an influencer, Susie Wizard Fight everywhere. Yeah, it'd be more influential, exactly.
Okay, I think we're getting tight on time, so I have one question I really want to ask all of you, and it is, what is the best product idea that you have that you've never told anybody? That you can share with us here on this stage. We won't tell anybody.
Never told anybody?
You never told anybody.
I tell everyone everything.
A product that you're excited about, or that you could substitute and just say, it'd be a wild idea, what might be fun, something you're just thinking about in the shower, or when
You mean a physical product or an idea business-wise?
Business-wise. Yeah.
Fine, yeah, I'll tell everything. I don't care.
I guess I have one, but
Okay.
I've told some people.
Okay.
I really want to make a content site that's focused on immigrant moms and grandmothers. Just as a child of refugee parents, I feel like there's a generation that's getting older, and their knowledge will soon not be with us. So I think it'd be really cool to have somewhere where you have like recipes and hacks and just like the things. And I don't think it has to necessarily just be immigrant moms, but I think just like making sure we're capturing that generation of knowledge that will soon no longer be with us.
That's great.
Well, I've told a couple people this, but this is my secret business idea. It's called Nice Ice, and it's essentially a mobile app that delivers you really high quality cocktail ice on demand. So like if you're in your apartment and you're like having friends over,
Love it.
and let's face it, no one wants your Half Moon refrigerator ice that smells like 2 years of stale groceries.
No, we want nice ice,
We
please.
want nice ice. So you take out your phone, you open the app, you push the Nice Ice button, you put in your information. Of course, you've signed up already for the app, and they have all your data.
And I'm sorry, what kind of ice do you get?
Well,
nice
ice. And there's options. I mean, you could get different square ones, like the ones that come out of those Japanese ice machines that are super nice. Or you could get
For
the
your
large,
whiskey.
or
Yeah,
you get your large round balls.
yeah.
I mean, there's different ways that you can go. So
I love this.
Nice
I hope there's
ice.
some venture capitalists out here listening that are ready to fund some of these.
We're in our A round raising
okay,
funds.
you're still raising money.
Exactly.
I had this conversation recently with my best friend, and a lot of you have gotten to know me better. He said, when people approach the pool, you first ask how deep it is normally. But Dominic, you just jump in and then go, do I know how to swim? And I kind of realized, he said, the secret to what you've done is you don't really give it blank and you just do it. Honestly, there's been very few. At times, I don't know why. That's what gets me in trouble. You know, I started a nonprofit for the homeless because I was just really pissed off one day. I started a scholarship fund for learning disabled journalists in Long Island, and I called the national board, and they said, well, there are no learning disabled journalists. I said, that's why I'm making the scholarship. That's exactly why. We have it every year, and actually, Media Post is donating to that, and I think that's awesome.
I beg to differ on that point.
That's exactly what I said, by far. You know, I'm very much the advocate. If you have that idea, like Nice Ice, you do it. You just jump in that pool and you try it. And I feel that if you succeed, hooray, I'm thrilled, like the nonprofit worked or the scholarship worked. And if you fail, you also in turn succeed, I feel. And there's so many things I have done. I've probably launched 26 sites over these past 25 years. Maybe 5 of them made profits, but I attribute the profit of the 5 due to the failures of the 20. And some of them, I actually have 3 sites. My wife, when she helps me with the counting, she makes fun of me for it because they're just sitting there. And she says, what is this site? Never heard of it. I said, it makes $1,000 a year, and we're happy with the $1,000. Thank you very much. We'll just leave it doing its thing. But that in turn is a success. So I'm much more the advocate at times when you have an idea, and Tim says, do you have an idea? You better have started it. So I really want Nice Ice. Not regular ice, no stinky ice, nice one.
Couldn't we integrate Nice Ice into a cocktail recipe?
You're going too far. Just the ice.
Everyone wants bespoke ice, let's face it.
Okay, Leora.
Mine isn't as noble. I mean, well, yes, your nonprofits.
No. Nice Ice was awesome, so you gotta keep going.
I get frustrated. I think a hotel chain, I know there's like an inventory issue, but should open so that you get a full 24 hours. So it's not just 3 to 11. I'm so frustrated by that if you check in at 3, then you have till 3 the next day. And that's how you pay.
Brilliant. Okay.
Came with Nice Ice.
Steve, I should have led with that. What was I thinking, man? That was the magic
Tim, honest
there.
to God, that was one of the best rap questions that I've heard on a panel. That was great. And Elise, speaking as the publisher around this event, if you make money on Nice Ice, we want an affiliate cut. We have time for some final questions of the panel.
Don't be shy.
Okay, I want to pull this back to really the reason that publishers are pursuing product development now is because of the shrinkage in traditional advertising opportunities. So all of you reflect a little bit on, so far, how have you moved the needle in your organizations in terms of moving away from traditional reliance on traditional advertising, and these new and innovative products are actually increasing rev share and changing the composition of your revenue picture?
I think it's changing the composition, but we're actually adding ads back into everything, right? So our subscription box is now a sampling opportunity for advertisers. So we're actually building new opportunities. I think a lot of advertisers now want a hybrid deal, right? So they want advertising that ties into affiliate, and that's key. And we're really building out those partnerships, and that's also a learning experience because ad sales is not used to that as well. So we're actually kind of building our expertise. Sponsorship in DIYU is one of our biggest differentiators in that space. So we've kind of built the basis, and now we're bringing the advertising revenue back, which actually helps the bottom line and helps the revenue, the profitability of each of those products.
Again, it's sort of, we've heard this, I think, a couple of times already, this idea of publishers engaging their marketing partners in full funnel activity, and that's actually influencing everything now.
Yep, and the same goes for us. I would say affiliate is definitely growing the bottom line, but it's also growing kind of the size of the pie because we're now also able to show advertisers that we're not just driving views and engagement, but we're actually driving conversion. So we have a new data point to speak to when our sellers are out in market. So it's actually supporting our advertising business, and it is creating new inventory that, again, you can sell against or have product integration within. So it's essentially increasing the places where advertisers can play.
Yeah, I think, broadly what I've done in the media space over the last 20 years at a high level is unleash value around trademark and what is the value of a trademark of a property. And the example I'll give is if you take a brand like, just say, Vogue, right, like the most popular magazine in the world, and if you just shut down all the media and you just said, I'm going to auction off this name Vogue for all the trademark registrations it has, there'd be a value to that brand that's not recognized on anybody's balance sheet. And then if you could take that trademark and start to create other contracts around it that have ongoing revenue, like license agreements. So if you had a brand that maybe wasn't as famous as Vogue, but was a well-known brand, media's running out, you're thinking about shutting it down, you're thinking about selling it, you know, when you actually go to transact, if you have these trademark licensing agreements attached to the asset, when you go to transact, you will find a higher multiple for the trademark. And you know, some of these trademarks get sold in the aftermarket just as trademarks. And so that's kind of a little bit of less of a transactional answer.
Since I came on board Inquisitor, the focus was the traditional advertising because that was the bread and butter. And I think we got it, fortunately, up 12-fold from when I started. And 12-fold increase, I was like, wow, that's great. So I look at it more like a separate pie now. We've gotten this pie, I don't want to mess with it. Now here's another pie I got to look at and increase. And it's tiny, but I have to get that affiliate further and not mess with the originality, the original. We have this traditional media pie that's grown 12-fold in 14 months, 16 months. Let's celebrate that growth and not lose that growth, as well as to open up this one.
Tim, panel, thanks very much. That was a great ending.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.